Welcome to A for Apocalypse, where we investigate life hacks and survival tips and grade them on how useful they'll be in the zombie apocalypse. Thank you so much for joining me. We've got an amazing show for you today. I like to start off with a little segment I call, God, I'm an Idiot. Yes, as you may recall, last episode, one of the hacks that we investigated was starting a fire with a magnifying glass. And as you may recall, I failed miserably. Now at the time, I attributed that to environmental effects. Being the fall in the Northeast, I proposed that perhaps the sun's rays were maybe a little less strong and therefore not as optimal. Well, as it turns out, I was completely and 100% wrong. It has nothing to do with what time of year or where you are in the globe. You actually can start a fire with a magnifying glass as long as you have the right fuel and the right patience. I could have started a fire, I just wasn't patient enough. The fuel I was using was a very stark white piece of paper towel. And white, as we all know, reflects light and heat. So that in and of itself wasn't optimal. So today I'm going to try something different. I'm going to use the same magnifying glass, but use a piece of newsprint. Newsprint is thinner and it is darker, dark ink, and the paper itself is darker, and that should absorb the heat from the magnifying glass and should start a fire pretty quickly. So let's take a look and see what we got here. Newspaper and magnifying glass. Now, let's be patient this time. We get that as close as possible. You can see that already within a matter of seconds it's starting to smoke and smolder. And if I hold that up for you, you can see that it's caught fire. Now let's douse that, shall we? Rather not start a forest fire, if you don't mind. But I did have another interesting question. Right here, this is a fire starter. It's just a small scrap of wood used for kindling. And I was wondering how patient we'd need to be to start a fire on the piece of kindling. Well, apparently you need more patience than I have right now. So let's head on and check out some more hacks. So, now that we've cleared that up, let's move on to some more hacks, this time related to actually using the fire. Before we do, let me take a step back there. I forgot to regrade that. So last episode, I graded the magnifying glass fire starter a B something, B minus, B plus, something along those lines. And I'm going to reclassify that as a solid A plus. Because if you're using the right fuel, like newsprint, then it'll start almost instantaneously. So good to have, good to know, good to use. All right, let's move on. We're going to investigate some hacks related to using fire. One of the hacks that I've seen online is using a crayon instead of a candle. The question is, does it actually work? So I have in my bag a box of crayons. I also have in my bag a lighter. Yes, full. So, let us answer the question of, can you use a candle instead of a crayon? Can you use a crayon instead of a candle? The answer is dun, 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 dun. Let's try that again, shall we? Fresh candle. Try to avoid getting any hot wax on yourself. Hot wax hurts. There we go. Does it last more than 5 seconds? Yes, and it does. I think what happened with this one was that the wax kept putting out the flame once the paper liner caught fire, and dumping out the excess wax then pulled away all the available fuel, and so the paper around it kept going out before the wax could catch. So there we have it. You know, I'd give that one an A. I think come Zombie Apocalypse, a crayon is much more valuable to you as a source of light than it is as a source of entertainment. Unless you have small children, in which case it's kind of 50-50. So if you have small children, maybe an A-. You can probably do without the crayons though. Now, here's a question for you. What happens if you have a crayon that doesn't have a wrapper? Now, somewhere in here, yeah, I have my knife. Technically not a knife, technically a razor. But if you don't have a crayon, if you have a crayon that doesn't have a wrapper, there's no wick. So a crayon without a wrapper will not catch fire, it cannot be used as a candle. So if you have a crayon that doesn't have a wrapper, you can make your own wick by wrapping it in a small piece of toilet paper, tissue paper, paper towel, that sort of thing, something easily flammable and absorbent. And I happen to have with me a piece of paper towel here. Now we have a crayon with no paper and a piece of paper towel. So I will just do the whole wrappy here, and voila. And there you have it, folks. A crayon paper towel candle. Yeah, that also gets an A+ or A- depending on whether or not you have kids. Now, another hack that I've seen is lighting nuts, particularly the Brazil nut. Brazil nut happens to be pretty high in fat. So, does a Brazil nut work as a crayon? It does not work as a crayon, but does it work as a candle? Here is a Brazil nut. Here is the fire. And indeed, it does work as a candle. However, there's a lot of protein in nuts, and burned protein smells awful. Also, come Zombie Apocalypse, I think that a Brazil nut is probably much more valuable to you as a source of nutrition than it is as a source of light, given how little light it gives off. So I would give that a solid C-. I'd much rather you eat it. But not after trying to burn it. Ugh. What about pecan or pecan, depending on your pronunciation and where you come from? My feeling is it'll be the exact same as the Brazil nut. Now, flame's actually slightly better on the pecan, but again, much more valuable to you as a source of nutrition. I'm not going to torment myself by eating this one. I'll give it to the squirrels. I have a strong feeling the other nuts are going to be the same. Now lastly, for today, I'm going to put this away for safekeeping. This is a good one. Picked this up in the supermarket the other day. Again, supermarket is a great place to loot come the zombie apocalypse. Not beforehand. Sardines in olive oil. Actually, any kind of fish in olive oil. You'll find tuna in olive oil, salmon in olive oil, any kind of canned fish in oil is great. In this instance, all we're gonna have to do is pull back the lid a little bit, take a piece of paper towel and wrap it up to form a wick. Insert that wick into the can. That's kind of a long wick. Good thing I have a blade to trim it with. And there we have our sardine can candle. Now, of course it's going to go out. The larger the wick you have, the larger the flame will be, but conversely, the faster it'll burn out. Now this I give as an A+ as well, because when you're eating the sardines, you don't eat the oil. So you can stick your wick in there, let it burn out, and you'll be left with the oilless sardines to eat. Bon appetit. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any hacks that you want us to investigate, please note them in the comment section below. In the meantime, click to subscribe, like, share, and join us next time for A for Apocalypse.